A void is often described as the space between life and death, a kind of limbo where consciousness might linger after the body has stopped working. Some imagine it as an empty, silent expanse, while others believe it to be a passage to something greater. People who have tried to explain the void tend to describe it in a few different ways. Some say it feels like a blank space, where thoughts and emotions simply disappear, leaving only pure existence. Others talk about a floating sensation as if their mind is drifting through darkness or being pulled toward a tunnel of light. Some recall a state where time no longer matters, where past, present, and future dissolve into a single eternal moment. A few even describe it as dreamlike, a space filled with visions or guiding voices. And then there are those who believe it's a waiting room of sorts, a place where the soul lingers before moving on to an afterlife, reincarnation, or perhaps something entirely unknown. And as we delve into this profound mystery, consider joining the community of seekers who, like you, are curious about the unknown. A simple like and subscribe will keep you connected to these explorations, ensuring you never miss a moment of discovery. You see, actually, the idea of an in-between state is not new. Many religious traditions describe it in different ways. In Tibetan Buddhism, for example, the bardo is considered a transitional phase that the soul enters after death. The Bardo Thodol, also known as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, is said to guide souls through this phase, describing visions and experiences that can range from peaceful to terrifying. And Tibetan monks believe that those who understand the nature of the bardo can use this opportunity to reach enlightenment, or at least ensure a favorable rebirth. The ancient Egyptians had their own version of this concept. They believed that after death, the soul had to navigate the duat, an underworld filled with tests and challenges. The most famous of these was the weighing of the heart against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth. Before reaching that point, the soul might find itself in an uncertain wandering state, much like the void. Some texts even describe this phase as a time of waiting, a limbo before judgment. Christianity too has a concept of an intermediate space. Limbo was once believed to be a place between heaven and hell, where souls who hadn't been baptized or who had unfinished business would reside temporarily. Although this idea is no longer an official part of Catholic doctrine, it reflects a belief in an in-between realm where souls are neither fully gone nor fully saved. Hinduism describes a similar transition in the cycle of samsara, the endless loop of birth, death, and rebirth. Some Hindu texts suggest that after death, the soul may experience a period of darkness before moving into its next life. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that the nature of this transition depends on one's karma and spiritual understanding. Those who achieve moksha, or enlightenment, are believed to escape the cycle entirely and merge with the infinite, perhaps dissolving into the void itself. But what about philosophy and modern science? Plato believed that after death, the soul enters a realm of pure thought, where it reflects on past experiences before moving on. Epicurus, on the other hand, dismissed all of these ideas. To him, death was the absolute end. No void, no afterlife, just non-existence. Then there's neuroscience, which suggests that when the brain shuts down, consciousness stops as well. And yet, near-death experiences challenge this idea. People who have been clinically dead and then revived often report sensations of floating outside their bodies, seeing bright lights, or even entering a vast empty space that feels strangely real. Science doesn't have all the answers yet, but the consistency of these reports across cultures and time periods raises an interesting question. If so many people describe something similar, could the void be more than just a trick of the mind? People who have come close to death often return with incredible stories. Some say they hovered above their bodies, watching doctors and nurses working frantically to save them. Others describe being pulled through a tunnel toward a bright light or a feeling of overwhelming peace. And then there are those who speak of the void. Some recall it as a place of deep silence where nothing exists but awareness itself. They say it was peaceful, even comforting, as if they had to let go of everything yet still remained conscious. Others, however, describe it as terrifying, a place of endless emptiness where they felt utterly alone. They struggled to move, to think, to be, but the void swallowed them, stretching out forever. Skeptics argue that these experiences are simply the brain shutting down, a final burst of electrical activity creating hallucinations. But the fact remains, thousands of people across different cultures, backgrounds, and beliefs report eerily similar experiences. How do we explain that? Whether these accounts are glimpses of an actual afterlife or just neurological illusions, they offer a fascinating look into what the void feels like. And that perhaps is just as important as knowing what it actually is. The concept of the void matters because it forces us to confront something we rarely like to think about: the unknown. It reminds us that for all our advancements in science and philosophy, there are still things we don't fully understand. For some, the idea of an in-between space is comforting. It suggests that death isn't an abrupt stop, but rather a transition into something else. For others, it is unsettling, a reminder that we may never truly know what happens when we die. But maybe the most important lesson of the void isn't about death at all. It's about life. If the void is real, perhaps we should be preparing for it. If it is a test, maybe we should be training ourselves to navigate it with clarity and awareness. And if it is nothing more than the end, then it serves as a reminder that our time here is finite and precious. The void challenges us. It invites us to question everything we think we know. And in doing so, it makes us more aware of what it means to be here now, alive. This is only the beginning. In the next part, we will dive deeper into the psychological and scientific perspectives on the void. We will explore what happens in the brain during near-death experiences, and we'll also examine how different spiritual traditions suggest we navigate this space. But before we get there, let's take a moment to consider something a little less mysterious, but equally intriguing. Why do so many people report feeling a sense of weightlessness when they encounter the void? Maybe the sensation of floating might be linked to how the brain processes death, or somehow it hints at something beyond what we currently understand. Maybe, just maybe, the feeling of drifting into the void is our first step toward discovering what's on the other side. But for now, we are still standing at the edge looking in. Now, in the first part, we stepped into the unknown and explored the void through history, culture, and religious beliefs. We saw how different traditions describe it as a passage, a waiting room, or a place of transformation. We also glimpsed into near-death experiences, where some found peace in the void, while others encountered sheer terror. But now we must go deeper. What does science say about the void? What happens in the brain when we die? Could the void be nothing more than a neurological illusion, or is there something more to it? And what about those who claim to have willingly entered it through deep meditation or psychedelic experiences? Let's push beyond ancient beliefs and explore the void through the lens of psychology, neuroscience, and direct human experience. The idea of the void is unsettling, and there's a good reason for that. As human beings, we are wired to see patterns, meaning, and continuity. The thought of absolute nothingness contradicts everything we experience in daily life. Sigmund Freud believed that our fear of death is deeply buried in the unconscious mind. He suggested that since we cannot truly imagine what it's like to not exist, we project our deepest fears onto death, creating visions of hell, punishment, or terrifying emptiness. It's not death itself we fear, but the loss of self. Carl Jung had a different view. He thought the void might represent something more than just fear. It could be a place of confrontation, a realm where we meet our shadow self, the hidden parts of our consciousness we suppress. In a way, encountering the void might not just be about death, it could also be about self-discovery. This fear of the void manifests in different ways in daily life. Have you ever had a moment just before falling asleep when you suddenly feel like you're falling into nothingness? That brief, terrifying sensation of slipping away. Some psychologists believe this could be the brain's way of simulating the experience of ego loss, something that those who have encountered the void describe in eerily similar terms. And then there's the sensation of floating, often reported by those who have had near-death experiences. Why do so many people feel weightless in the void? It could be that as the body begins shutting down, the brain stops processing the feeling of gravity, making us believe we are drifting. But what if the sensation of floating is something more? Perhaps the first step toward leaving the physical world behind. When the body dies, what actually happens inside the brain? For centuries, scientists assumed that the moment the heart stops beating, consciousness simply shuts off. But recent research suggests that it's not so simple. A 2013 study found that after the heart stops, the brain undergoes a final surge of activity, almost as if it's firing up before shutting down. In fact, EEG scans of dying brains show patterns that resemble heightened consciousness, similar to deep meditation or psychedelic experiences. Could this final burst of neural activity be what creates the sensation of entering the void? Some researchers suggest that near-death experiences are nothing more than the brain hallucinating as it loses oxygen. The tunnel of light? That could be the visual cortex shutting down from the outside in. The sense of floating? A disruption in how the brain processes balance and body awareness. And yet, something doesn't quite add up. If near-death experiences are just random brain activity, why do thousands of people report the same patterns? Why do people who have never met, who come from completely different backgrounds, describe the same void? Silent, vast, timeless. Could it be that science is only scratching the surface? Some physicians have gone even further, suggesting that consciousness isn't just a byproduct of the brain, it might be something much bigger. The quantum unconsciousness theory, proposed by physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, suggests that our awareness is linked to quantum processes at the smallest levels of reality. If this is true, then when the body dies, consciousness might not disappear. It might simply transfer to another state of existence. Could the void be that state, a place where consciousness drifts before it finds a new form? Or is the void simply what it feels like to fade away? Near-death experiences are one thing, but what about people who claim to have willingly entered the void? Some individuals, through deep meditation, sensory deprivation, or psychedelic substances, have reported experiences that sound almost identical to descriptions of the void. First is the relation between meditation and the void, when the self disappears. Certain Buddhist monks and spiritual practitioners claim that through years of meditation, they can reach a state where the self completely dissolves. They call this sunyata, emptiness. One Zen practitioner described it like this: I closed my eyes and my thoughts stopped. Then everything disappeared. There was no me, no time, no space. I was aware, but I was nothing. It wasn't scary. It was just infinite stillness. Could it be that deep meditation allows the mind to preview the void before death? If so, does that mean the void itself is real? Or does it mean that it's just another state of mind? Then there are certain psychedelic substances like DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and psilocybin found in magic mushrooms, which are known to induce experiences eerily similar to both near-death states and deep meditation. Many who have taken these substances report having a sudden loss of ego, where they no longer feel like an individual. Others enter a black, infinite space, sometimes with a sense of being watched. A few say that it is a timeless floating state, as if their awareness is outside of time. One person who took DMT described it like this: I felt like I died. There was no tunnel, no light, just a black void stretching forever. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't anything. I was just there. Then, suddenly, I came back. What's interesting is that these substances appear to act on the same parts of the brain that are active during near-death experiences. Could it be that DMT is unlocking a part of the brain that already knows what the void feels like? Or even more intriguingly, could it be that the void is always there, just beneath the surface of our consciousness, waiting to be uncovered? Let's take a step back and analyze what exactly we have talked about so far. The void is not just a religious idea, nor is it purely a scientific phenomenon. It appears across cultures, personal experiences, and even experimental neuroscience. Whether it is a state of consciousness, a trick of the dying brain, or something beyond human understanding, One thing is certain: it feels real to those who have encountered it. But maybe the most important question isn't what the void is, but what it means. If the void is peaceful, does that mean death is nothing to fear? If it is terrifying, does that mean we shape our own experience of the afterlife? And if it's nothing more than the final moments of brain activity, then does it serve as a reminder to cherish every second of life while we still can? The void holds many secrets, but one thing is certain: it has everything to do with how we live. So, we have explored the void from psychological and scientific perspectives, but the biggest question still remains. Is the void a transition to something greater, or is it truly the end, a passage to another existence, or the final dissolution of all that we are? Before we find out, consider this: if the void is real, then we may have already been there before birth, a place of nothingness, a state beyond time where consciousness had not yet begun. But if that's the case, why don't we remember it? If we came from the void once before, it leaves no trace upon us. Perhaps true nothingness cannot be known, or maybe memory itself is merely a construct of the life we currently inhabit. And if we do return, it may be the same as before, a silent, forgotten expanse. Alternatively, we might finally understand its nature in ways we never could before. So far, we've explored the void through history, psychology, and science. We've seen it described as a transition, a resting place, or a glimpse of total nothingness. We've heard from those who claim to have touched it through death, meditation, or altered states. But one question remains: is the void leading somewhere, or is it truly the final stop? Let's step even closer to the edge. Many traditions see the void as a doorway rather than an ending. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the void is the space between reincarnations, a brief moment of rest before the soul enters a new body. Tibetan teachings suggest that those who understand the void can choose their next life, or even escape the cycle entirely. And then there's the idea that death might not mean reincarnation, but rather a shift into something entirely different. Some physicists propose that we live in a multiverse, a vast sea of parallel realities. If that's true, could the void be the bridge between them? Could death in one reality mean waking up in another? There are even those who believe our universe is a simulation. If that's the case, maybe the void is just the space between programs, the moment when one version of existence ends and another begins. But if death is simply a doorway, where does it lead? Of course, not everyone sees the void as a transition. Some argue that it's not a passage at all, it's just the brain shutting down. Science suggests that consciousness is produced by the brain, and when the brain stops working, so does experience. In this view, the void isn't an actual place, it's just what it feels like when consciousness fades away. No thoughts, no time, no self. Just nothing. Philosophers like Epicurus believed that death should not be feared because we will never actually experience it. If the void is truly the end, then it will be like the time before we were born, silent, empty, non-existent. And yet, that very thought unsettles us. Why? Because we exist now, and the idea of not existing is impossible for us to fully grasp. One of the strangest possibilities is that the void isn't the same for everyone. Those who expect peace find peace. Those who fear nothingness experience nothingness. And those who believe in an afterlife might enter one of their own making. Could the void be personal? A space that mirrors our subconscious, shaped by our beliefs, fears, or expectations? It would explain why some find it comforting while others find it terrifying. And it would mean that what happens next isn't fixed, it's created by us. Whether the void is a doorway, an illusion, or the end, one thing is clear: it changes how we see life itself. If it is a passage, then we are travelers. If it is nothingness, then every moment here is precious. And if it is shaped by us, then the way we live now may influence what we experience after. The void is a mystery, but in searching for its meaning, we are reminded of something important. Right now we are alive, and that in itself is extraordinary. So, we've explored the void from every angle, but there's one final piece left: the direct experiences of those who have truly gone to the edge and beyond. What do the dying see in their final moments? What do the living remember after returning? And what if the void is something we've already encountered before we were even born? The answers may be closer than we think. We've explored the void through history, science, and philosophy. We've questioned whether it's a transition, an illusion, or the absolute end. But now, we turn to those who have truly gone there, the people who claim to have seen, felt, and even returned from the void. What do they remember, and what does it mean for the rest of us? Near-death experiences offer some of the most compelling glimpses into the void. Some describe it as a place of absolute peace, a quiet, infinite space where there is no fear, no suffering, only awareness. Others experience it as a terrifying abyss, an overwhelming emptiness where they feel utterly alone. A man revived after a cardiac arrest described it as, "There was no light, no sound, no body, just me floating in nothing, but I wasn't scared. I could have stayed there forever." In contrast, another person who survived a drowning said that it was endless blackness and I knew I was trapped there. No time, no escape, just me and the void stretching forever. Why do some find peace while others find terror? Could it be that the void reflects our own minds? There's one question we rarely ask. What about before we were born? Most of us have no memory of anything before our first moments of consciousness. If death is a return to the void, then maybe we've already been there. Maybe the void isn't something new, it's just the state we came from before we existed. And if that's true, then why don't we remember it? One thing is for sure, the void remains the greatest mystery of all. Whether it is a gateway, a dream, or the end, it forces us to confront the unknown. But perhaps the real lesson isn't about death, it's about life. And just living it as comfortably as you can, obviously with less harm to others. Whatever the truth may be, the greatest lesson of the void is this: we don't need to wait for death to confront it. When we meditate, we touch the void. When we lose ourselves in deep thought, we touch the void. And when we let go of ego and fear, we touch the void. And if the void is peaceful, we have nothing to fear. If the void is terrifying, we must ask why. If the void is nothingness, then every second we have now is precious. No matter what lies ahead, one truth remains. Right now, we are here, and maybe that's all that matters. So, what do you think? Is the void the end or the beginning? Comment down your perspectives and leave a like if you enjoyed watching. And if you're curious about whether déjà vu could be proof of multiple realities, check out our video, "What if déjà vu is proof you're living multiple realities?" Don't forget to subscribe for more mind-bending content.